Hello everybody and welcome to this video. If I have not met you before in real life maybe, or here on this virtual space, my name is Kate and I am a personal trainer based in London, UK, and I work predominantly with female clients, not exclusively but predominantly with female clients. And over the time that I've been training women, including myself, I have noticed that there is a massive lack of awareness around the menstrual cycle and training. So I was having a little look around on the virtual space and also about what kind of information already exists about this subject, and I couldn't find anything that was really super comprehensive, super clear and easy to understand so that you can translate it into your life and your training. So I thought, well, I'm gonna have to do it. So without further ado, let's get straight into this. I'm gonna break it down in the simplest form possible. First of all, let's start off talking about the phases in our cycle. We've got half number one, so phase one here, and that is between the first day of your period and the first day that you ovulate, okay? This is called the follicular phase. The follicular phase is focused on the maturation of an egg, and then it's getting ready to be released before it hits ovulation and you enter the second half of your cycle. We then move on to the second phase, which is called the luteal phase. The luteal phase is when you are highly likely to get pregnant, so you're a lot more fertile. The egg has been released and it's making its way through the fallopian tube down into the uterus, and then if it hasn't been fertilized, it's then released through the menses, and then you come all the way back to the start and we go back to that first cycle. Let's move on to a quick hormone 101, female hormones. So bearing in mind that there are other hormones within the female body, but for the sake of this video in this context, we're going to talk about our sex hormones and the role that they play in our menstrual cycle. Let's talk about our ovarian hormone. Ovarian hormones are produced within the ovaries, okay? So your ovaries are actually a gland and they produce these hormones. First of all, estrogen and progesterone, okay? Really super important hormones within the menstrual cycle, and they're kind of like Batman and Robin, okay? They work together, they work in harmony, they work against each other, and they have this kind of wave relation, all right? So estrogen and progesterone. We also have testosterone, and yes, females do produce testosterone, okay? It is not just exclusively a male hormone. We do need it, and it helps us during our first half of the cycle. Our last ovarian hormone is estradiol, and estradiol is a hormone that works really super hard. It's rising during the follicular half of your cycle. Next up, we have our anterior pituitary hormones. These hormones are produced in the brain. We have a thing called the pituitary gland in the brain. It is only very, very small, but it's very important. Our two hormones that play a part during the menstrual cycle are luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, which is FSH. Your luteinizing hormone, that is what plays its part in the second half of the cycle, and it works on the egg, the cell itself. And the follicle stimulating hormone is the hormone that stimulates the follicle inside the ovary to produce an egg that will then rupture and be released into your reproductive system. Excellent, let's go in for day 1 to 6 of our cycle. So we are now back at the follicular phase, that first half of our menstrual cycle. We are counting day 1 of the cycle as the first day that we bleed. This is called your menses or period, or when we are bleeding. In this time, your hormones progesterone and estrogen have dropped, okay? They have bottomed out. Due to this drop off, you might be feeling tired, fatigued, under the weather, sluggish, But on the other side of the coin, you will have a reduction in your PMS symptoms. So you might not feel anxious or angry or tense as much as you were that week before your period. You also might have a little bit more motivation to move your body, not necessarily in a very intense way, but we can still find motivation there as your PMS symptoms will have dropped off. One of the biggest physical problems with this 1 to 6 days of the cycle is the ability to brace through your core. Most sports, they require a certain amount of core engagement. So the biggest thing I think we need to realize as females in this part of the cycle is that your ability to brace and control this section might be compromised. You might want to step away from going really super heavy, taking some of the weight down and increasing the volume. Again, this is really individual to each person. Some people might not even experience this at all, but if you do, then that is the reason why. So some activities, some exercise suggestions at this point. I would usually suggest something that is like a mid-level intensity, okay? So something that might help with cramps, something that might help just lifting that fatigue a little bit, maybe some hot yoga or a power flow, or if you are in the gym, maybe think about something like low intensity cardio rather than HIIT training. And if you're hitting the weights, then what I would suggest is just bringing the weight down a little bit and going higher on the rep. That's going to help to counteract that bracing compromisation and help you with motivation and just keeping moving once you're in that first 1 to 6 days. At this point, some people, including myself, it just really depends month to month. Some people want to train, some people find that that's really beneficial for them at this time, and then other people, they really don't want to train, okay? And at that, I just say, listen to what your body wants you to do. Don't ever try and force anything. If we're aware that we are in that 1 to 6 days, and this is how we are expected, everyone is expected to feel it at this stage, then you need to just give yourself that mental freedom to do what your body wants to do. If you want to train, then by all means, being on your period, it doesn't stop you from training. You know, it's a very old wives' tale. It does not stop you from training. You can do what you want. If it feels good, if it makes you feel good, then by all means do it. But if you are on the other end of the spectrum and all you want to do is rest, then that is more than fine to do that, okay? There will be a time, we'll reach it later on, there will be a time when you will want to just grab everything and just go for it, okay? So just use this time, maximize your overall training, rest, and then I promise you the motivation and the intensity will come later on. Woo! Period has gone, all right? We are now in the 6 to 14 day phase, okay? We are preparing for ovulation. Estrogen and progesterone, okay? They are starting to rise. Remember in our menses, they have just bottomed out, okay? So they are now starting to rise nice and gently, okay? Coming towards that halfway point of the cycle, okay? And it starts to rise. Boop, 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 boop. So both progesterone and estrogen are rising at the same time. But in this case, okay, estrogen is Batman and progesterone is Robin, okay? So estrogen overtakes progesterone. So estrogen is going to make you feel randy, it really is. It's gonna make you feel good about yourself, it's gonna make you feel confident, it's gonna make you feel social, and the reason for that is because estrogen, it wants to get you pregnant. How that manifests now might feel different, okay? So it might actually make you just feel like you really want to go out and smash your job or really go and hit the gym hard, you feel good and you feel ready for it. At this point, FSH, so follicle stimulating hormone, that is also working hard as well. It's working hard in the ovary to get an egg ready, maturing the egg, ready for it to be released. So how does days 6 to 14 look with our emotions? Well, you're going to feel good, okay? So as these hormones start to pick up, there will be an increase in your mood, in your happy hormones. There will be an increase in your sex drive, good confidence in your body, you're going to want to be social, and you're going to feel a lot less tired. So let's take these into consideration and see how they fit in our training. So at this time, there are a few changes that can work in your benefit. So obviously emotionally, you're feeling really good about yourself. So if we think about motivation to actually go and move our body, get into the gym, go to a class, you are more likely to do this at this time. You also have a better ability to recover from any of the training that you have done. So that means definitely go for something that you wouldn't have gone for in the previous week, okay? You're probably going to be able to handle that a lot better. Your coordination will actually improve as well. So if you do a combat sport, or if you do something that requires hand-eye coordination, basketball, netball, then you might find that you are really smashing those games that week. Physically, your water retention and your bloating will have reduced. So during your period, your digestion slows down, okay? That is to do with the hormones affecting your digestive system and the muscles within the digestive tract. You're lighter and you feel more agile, and you feel like you aren't as restricted. You will also definitely 100% feel stronger. At this point, you can definitely start ramping things up, okay? If you're feeling good, then go for it. If you're getting some results or some PBs that you've not had before and you're thinking, why am I having those? Well, you might have just hit the sweet spot on where you are training and where you are in your cycle. So at this time, your training could include things like strength training, really ramping up the volume, ramping up the weights that you are going for. Combat sports, you know, you can definitely maximize that at this time. You're coordinated, you're agile. HIIT training as well, because HIIT does demand a lot on the body, so high intensity interval training, you are more likely to handle that better now, recover faster, and it not have such a big impact on your nervous system. So if you've never done something before and you want to try something, then well, now would be the time to try it. You could try pole dancing or roller skating. Something that you've never done before, now is a good time to start. So we have reached ovulation. Congratulations, guys. Halfway through our menstrual cycle. How exciting. And what is happening with our hormones? Well, everything comes to a peak at ovulation. So chemically, where we are at this stage is everything is pretty much peaking at that first day of ovulation. So your progesterone, your estrogen, your FSH hormone are all really high, waiting for that drop off to trigger ovulation. Alrighty, we are in our luteal phase of our menstrual cycle, this second half of our cycle. And this is more like your autumn and your winter as opposed to your spring and your summer, with the first half in the follicular phase. So in this phase, we need to really say hello to progesterone. Okay, so progesterone is now leading the way over estrogen. Both of them are still present, but progesterone is the Batman to the estrogen Robin at this point. Progesterone has a calming effect, okay, so it is an anti-anxiety hormone. So at this point when it's rising, it's over estrogen, you will probably feel quite mellow, okay, it really does start to rise. At this point, this is when people start to incur PMS. Now, PMS, okay, we don't know how and why we get PMS. Okay, there are lots of theories. I think the most dominant one is that if you are unable to sustain the correct amount of progesterone for long enough before your period, if there is a drop off of that progesterone or the drop off of it before your period, it can cause PMS symptoms, okay? But again, like I say, much like most things with women's health, we don't know that much. Do expect to feel these symptoms, as most women report that they have them at some point in their lives. So testosterone drops, estrogen drops off, progesterone rises. Progesterone affects the smooth muscle in your uterus. Okay, there is also smooth muscle in your gallbladder, your sphincter, and in your intestines. Okay, so it's something that people do not talk about, but it is also one of the most prominent effects of your pre-period symptoms is bloating. Progesterone also affects the serotonin levels in your brain as it drops off. So this is linking back into those PMS symptoms. So this is what they are suggesting. With that reduction in serotonin, there is a drop off in mood and you are getting your PMS symptoms. Other things may include towards the second half of the luteal half of your cycle, breakouts, breast tenderness, weight gain in terms of water retention. Your appetite will also will increase as well. So that is normal. Headaches, that's normal as well. And obviously all of this can have an effect on not only your physical state but your mental state. And this is what I am trying to combat, is getting people to understand how this affects you emotionally. So once we reach this second half of the cycle, we kind of put these negative feelings down to ourselves, especially as women. We blame it on ourselves. I don't know, I feel tired, I just don't know, or I don't feel good, or I didn't do very well in the gym the other day, or I'm pretty useless, or why do I feel this way? And this is why, because we are just built to feel like this. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but if we can understand what we are feeling and why we are feeling it, when we are feeling it, then at least it takes away some of the emotional stress behind it. And once we have that knowledge, we can start to maximize and we can make it work for us. We do have some really good pros to all of this and pros to being a woman. So if you aren't pregnant, your serotonin levels will drop and you'll start to feel those PMS symptoms. You will also start to get your food cravings, so you will definitely be craving sugar and carbohydrates. Sugars, sweets, pasta, bread, potatoes, chocolate, all of the things, pizza. This is not necessarily a bad thing. So at this point, when we are training hard, we need a lot of carbohydrates to fuel these workouts, whether it be HIIT, strength, boxing, whatever. So let's take these food cravings and flip them on their heads. Let's view them from the point of using those carbohydrates to fuel our sessions. So before we hit that really sticky stage, just a couple of days before the period and during the period where it's harder to train, we might not feel the best emotionally, but if we fuel ourselves, we give our body what it wants to combat the cravings. We're fueled, so we're feeling okay emotionally. Yes, we might be eating more, but you also might be in a good place to train quite hard with that amount of fuel that you are giving your body. Start to think about dropping the weight a little bit, okay? You don't have to go into shutdown mode as soon as you reach the second half of your cycle, but start to think about reducing the weight and going back into higher reps as you reach those couple of days before your period. Again, start to shift away from HIIT training to LIST training, so from high intensity interval training to low intensity. Be a little bit more mindful of your recovery. So at this point, you might take a little bit longer to recover. That is not your fault, okay? That's not because you did something that you weren't supposed to do. It's just because that's the way it is. And you probably smashed all the workouts in the first half, so you can take this chance to recover. After that, you're moving towards possibly a deload week, so taking everything down in intensity, bringing that in about a week before you hit your menses. And again, we don't have to view this time, this downtime, as a bad time or a time that we aren't really smashing our goals, because there's so much more to training that we can maximize at this point. Let's think about the more technical aspects of your training, your form, things that don't require intensity but maybe require more a mental intensity that is going to serve you in the next few weeks as you go back through the cycle. Think about maybe some remedial work, so anything that you've got niggles or injuries, this is a good time to work on those as well. Again, they play as much as an important part as lifting a super heavy weight, okay? It's all about a holistic view of your training, but now more than ever, it's the time for you to start thinking about something that's going to help you with those PMS symptoms, physically and mentally. Walking, bar, jogging, resistance work, swimming, yoga, these are all common things that people could do at this time, but like anything, if you feel like you want to go for something a little bit more intense and it feels right, then by all means you can do that, you know. But if at this point you're feeling like you don't and it coincides with these symptoms, then this is probably why, and that's normal. And just like that, we have come all the way full circle back to day number 1, your menses. Yes, we have reached our period again. Just like that, in it right, girls, back to the start. You can see here how things can actually work in your favor, and just by understanding what is going on, I think it could really help women to take this pressure off themselves that I see all the time. And it's not anybody's fault. It's not my fault. It's not their fault. It's not your fault that we feel like this. We just haven't had any education on our own bodies, especially this kind of stuff. And then let alone somebody taking that information and using it in the context of sport. Oh my gosh, the menstrual cycle and women in sport. Oh my God, the two. Like, it's just something that I haven't seen so often. And then bringing it again into the mainstream. So taking all of that complicated scientific stuff, yeah, okay, it's great, the research is being done now and we have results and people are working on it. But where is it coming from the science to the mainstream? Because I haven't seen that so much, and it really, really, really is so important. It's good. It's so important for your physical health, for your mental health, and when I've seen women understand this information, it is literally life-changing. I have experienced it firsthand. So over the past year, 2 years, this is what I have dedicated my time to try and understand and to work with my clients now, is to implement this aspect into their training, because you cannot have one without the other. It's so integrated in us. Our menstrual cycle is so part of us that to neglect the menstrual cycle in this setting is to neglect like 80% of what makes success as in the gym or in your indeed whole life. So the last thing that I'm going to finish on is just to point out that this video is definitely not a prescription to how you relate to your menstrual cycle and your training. Each women's cycle is so individual, so even the timescales, the days, they can be so vastly different, but hopefully the general guideline of the flow of your menstrual cycle fits with how these symptoms, how these physical, emotional symptoms coincide with your cycle. Definitely don't take this as gospel, okay? It's stuff that's based in science but needs to be interpreted by you, okay? And then the last thing to finish on is just listen to your body. I've heard women say that they want to listen to their body, but they can't trust their body. And that is a really strange way of thinking about things. Maybe it's more that they can't trust their body because they don't understand their body and understand their hormones. I think that's maybe where that's coming from. So hopefully this video gives you some knowledge to help you to understand how you might be feeling and take that emotional stress away from training. And indeed, we can actually use this. It's not all doom and gloom. We can actually use this to maximize our training, okay? There are parts in our training, in our menstrual cycle as women, that we have the ability to do things that comparatively to males are greater. Your ability to recover and the amount of weight that you can shift for your body weight is it surpasses the capacity of males at some points in your cycle. So that is actually a really fascinating and empowering thing to realize. So there we go, guys. That is a rundown of training and the menstrual cycle. It's been a long time coming, I tell you. I've been wanting to do this video for so long. I feel like there's so many things that I could add in here. I could talk about this forever, so if you want to talk about this forever, then you can find me on Instagram at ThisIsKatesFitness. There are also some more detailed videos about the hormones on there, so if you want to put the hormones I've talked about in this video into context, then head over to the Instagram. You'll find them titled on the feed, so you can just click on those and get a bit more context for things. Please do join me again here. Any questions, leave down in the comments. Join me over on Instagram. If you have found this video useful, then please do give it a like. Subscribe to me, okay? I don't have that many followers, but I'm just here putting information out, and if somebody listens to it, then that's a good banny. Give it a thumbs up, guys. Have a good day, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.